The aromatics are just incredible.
Just like any stew, I think it's one of those smells that makes everybody hungry and happy to be home, whether it's a stew that's made in Japan or made in the middle of America. The first step is to make our broth. This is a nice change. Japanese will make broths, dashi, with various things, dried shiitakes being one of them. Turn it off and then just let all those flavors steep together for about 20 minutes. Like tea, the mushrooms should have given up most of their flavor. If the meat is too lean, it's not going to have as much flavor to it, and it's also going to be a little bit drier. Something that's got some nice marbling to it is going to have a little bit more of that unctuous quality as it's slowly cooked for like 3 hours. There's a little bit of fat in here. I wouldn't worry about it. A big chunk like that, I'll probably trim that out. Beef in here should sizzle when it hits the pan. Don't crowd the pan too much, otherwise you'll never get the meat to caramelize. It'll just sort of steam in its own juices. Don't stir it around right away. I think that's a common mistake people make. Give it an opportunity for it actually to caramelize and brown a little bit on the bottom side before you move it. Turn them over, brown them on the other side. Once you take the meat out, you should have a nice brown glaze on the bottom. It's going to contribute depth of flavor to our braising juices, which becomes the sauce that surrounds the meat. Add in the mushroom dashi. Turn that to the heat. You want to scrape that up so that it releases, becomes part of the broth. We're going to grate a little bit of ginger into this, although if you don't have a grater, feel free just to chop it and add it to the dish. Our vegetables that are going in with the beef stew, daikon quite often is used raw, but it also is really nice in a stew where it's almost like a turnip, where it will actually absorb some of the flavors of the broth that it's in. After 2.5 hours, your meat is almost done. It should be starting to smell nice, where your flavors are starting to combine. To give the sauce a little bit more body, we're going to puree some toasted sesame seeds. So when you buy them, put them in a dry skillet and just shake them over high heat until they start to take on, a nice light brown color. A little miso paste. Keep in mind also miso is somewhat salty, so a little goes a long way. About another half an hour, everything should be sufficiently tender. Stir in your puree. Put it back on the stove just for a minute, just to let the flavors come together a little bit.
Wow, you've done it again, Brian. This is really spectacular. I mean, the Zinfandel is very complex in its aromas and very broad in its flavor profile. All the ingredients in your stew are very broad as well and comes together being very elegant, just like the Zinfandel. Our style of Zinfandel is not this big, heavy, rustic type. It's more of a very refined, very smooth and round, and very elegant.
Yeah, those powerhouse Zinfandels are impressive to sip, but I'm glad you make one like this, because I think it's much nicer enjoying it with food.
It's grown in 2,000 feet in elevation in the Red Hills of Lake County, a beautiful exposed site, so it produces a very complex wine, a lot of intensity, a lot of fruit, and without that heavy characteristic. And it goes extremely well with this dish.